What is going on, everyone? Anthony here, and welcome back to another video here on Let's Talk Resident Evil. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about more Resident Evil Reboot live action stuff. Now, it's coming out in September of 2026, and that's going to mark the 30th year of Resident Evil as an entire franchise. So they're going to be getting this thing ready for the 2026 fall time release. And it's no surprise that there's going to be more information coming out in the oncoming months, whether they start filming later this year or early next year. We'll have to see what's happening. But a lot of people have been talking about this plot that has been released online. It's been across all, official websites, apparently, of what has come out to be the plot line of the movie and also the lead role as well. So let's get right into it and take a look at what the plot is and, let's see if it's anything that we want to actually see in a Resident Evil film. So let's get right into it. This is from CBR.com. And right here, of course, this has been on multiple websites, but it says, a new Resident Evil movie is coming in theaters in 2026 with filmmaker Zach Cregger at the helm. While there's still a lot about the movie that's not yet known, a new report may have revealed the basic plot. According to the film industry insider Daniel Richtman, the upcoming Resident Evil reboot will follow a hapless courier tasked with delivering a package to a remote hospital. He finds himself caught in the middle of an outbreak and must fight through hordes of mutated creatures to survive. And it says, if accurate, this report would suggest that the film will be featuring an original story that's not the plot of any Resident Evil games. Okay, so let's take that for what it is. Now, a plot that is separate from the games sounds pretty familiar, right? Paul W.S. Anderson territory, especially with stuff like the first film being kind of its own thing, or even the third film being its own thing, and then so on and so forth. That kind of continued on to just doing its own thing. Now, I'm not completely against the idea of trying to do your own thing in a Resident Evil film cycle, especially when it's a reboot cycle like this, trying to start completely new. But I just want to know what the full inspiration was behind just completely diving into something entirely new. Obviously, with Welcome to Raccoon City, there was a lot of pushback from fans. Some people liked it, some people didn't like it. A lot of hardcore fans were not a fan of the rushing around two games into one movie, which is where I kind of sit with Welcome to Raccoon City. And this whole thing of him delivering a package to a remote hospital, I mean, this could just be any movie at this point, just slapped with Resident Evil on it. It depends on how much, Resident Evil isms they put in there, if that makes sense. Like, is it just going to be like, oh, here's a nod to this and a nod to that, Easter egg here, Easter egg there. So with the Paul Anderson film, the first movie was okay. There wasn't, things that completely blew me away, but it was at least isolated. It was in the hive. It was a little bit more contained. It had little moments of, hey, look at this. This is from the game, little moments like that, right? You had the super liquor, stuff like that. Now, with this, if they approach it in a similar way, where they don't get too excited or ahead of themselves, but make it, fit those Resident Evil pieces that we all know and love, it could work. I'm not completely against a different plot point that isn't the game, but at the same time, why can't we just get something that is like the game and it's more simplistic and it's something that we know and love? So something like this is still kind of scratching that casual audience. They just know the movies. They don't really play the games. So they see these characters that are brand new. You don't have to have an attachment to them. You don't have to know the history of them to get into it. So I understand that approach. I just don't see why it's a very challenging thing for these studios to get it right, as far as just making it based off the first game, making a movie based off the second game, so on and so forth. Like, maybe they see that it's too predictable. People have already played the games. I don't know what that mindset is and what's going on with this, Zach Cregger script and project, but, it just depends on how they pull it off and who they cast. Now, another thing we have to talk about is the lead role, right? When we're talking about characters in this film reboot, we're very curious to see what characters will be in this, standalone plot that they're apparently showing about, this guy carrying a package to a hospital. What are we going to see? Who are we going to see, right? Who is this person, right? And according to the same source, this is from Richmond, he says that Abrams' character name is listed as Bryan. So Austin Abrams is the actor that is apparently playing this lead role of Bryan. Now, some people were saying, oh, it could mean, Bryan Irons. I don't think so. I don't think that's the case, but unless they really wanted to switch it up a little bit and change it. But this is what he looks like right here. This is what he looks like right here. Now, some people could look at that and say, oh, he could, pass off as like a younger Leon, maybe. He doesn't necessarily look like Leon that much, but, some people could say, okay, he's got like the slick back hair. I've seen him in Euphoria before. He is a good actor. He's not a bad actor by any means, but something like this, someone could look at that and be like, okay, that's Leon, but his code name is Bryan. I'm not sure where they're going with this, but at the same time, I can't really expect them to just throw in old characters or characters that we know when they're going for a plot that is completely new. Now, Paul Anderson eventually led other characters in that we knew as the movies went on, and Zach Cregger could do this if this becomes a, 3-movie deal or a 5-movie deal. Like, who knows where this will go? Who knows if this will even be successful? But this might be a starting point for him to where he's like, you know what? I'm just going to do my own thing, bring in the characters that I want, and eventually we'll get to other characters that we know. But very similar to the Paul Anderson situation, it kind of got tired by the 4th movie, the 5th movie. You started just having characters show up, and they were just simply like cosplaying as the characters. They didn't really have any like grounded story that we know from the heart, something that we've seen from the beginning, and it's built up to this thing. No, Leon just shows up in the Paul Anderson movies. So does Barry in the Paul Anderson movies. He just kind of shows up, and we just don't really have... The only connection we're supposed to have is from what we played from the games. And it's like, that only works so much, in my opinion. Now, with Welcome to Raccoon City, I feel like, again, they just kind of overstepped. The casting was a little odd. Some of the cinematography was good. Some of the sets were great. I thought that stuff was cool, but you're trying to put 2 games in 1 movie, and it ended in a just not so great result that really just made this thing rebooted all over again. And here we are now in 2025, leaning for a 2026 release to just kind of move past that. And now we have this coming out. Is this going to be another Sony Pictures burrito of crap? I really don't know, but I obviously want to stay positive. I want to see a really good Resident Evil film, but in my opinion, this kind of got me a little disappointed because I thought that they were really going to try to take a game and go with something. Even if they went with Resident Evil 4 and just took a completely different approach and made a movie about that, I would at least respect that. It's not like they're going to, get everything right on the money. I don't expect them to, especially if the movie's like an hour and a half, hour 40 minutes, but you could at least try to attempt to follow a game again. But I'm not really sure how I feel about this. This kind of just seems like a standard stock, like zombie movie plot that is just going to have Resident Evil slapped on it. Like, I want to be wrong. I want to be proven wrong. I want to see the vibe of Resident Evil. I want to see the characters that we know and love that pull us in. I want to see the creatures that we know and love that pull us in to that universe of Resident Evil. But this is apparently what the plot is, unless this industry insider, Daniel Richtman, is completely wrong, and this isn't the plot and it changes or the script changes. There's still time for this stuff to get developed, so this isn't the end-all, be-all. But I'm curious to hear what you think about this in the comments. Let me know down below, because this is something that is, still kind of developing, and we're forming an opinion just based off of the little information that we have. So I'm not completely making up my mind. I'm going to see it and review it no matter what I say on this video or this coverage of the film. So let me know in the comments what you think of this reboot and the plot summary and the lead actor, Bryan, who's playing Bryan, but his name is Austin Abrams, who's going to be playing this Bryan character. So let me know your thoughts on that. And stay tuned for another episode of the Let's Talk Resident Evil podcast, where myself and John talk about what we would do in a Resident Evil live action given the creative control. So let me know in the comments your thoughts on this news so far. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned for more Let's Talk Resident Evil. Take care.